She's an OnlyFans star accused of stabbing her boyfriend to death. She's been locked up for over 3 years with no trial. So why is everybody watching December 5th? Hey everybody, it's me, AV. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where we talk about all things law, true crime, and debauchery. And today we're breaking down the case of Courtney Clenney and the killing of her boyfriend, Christian Toby Obumseli. We're going to walk through their relationship timeline, what happened the night he died, and why she's charged with second-degree murder instead of first, and why December 5th could completely change the direction of this case. Let's start with how we got here. Courtney and Christian met a few years ago and quickly grew into what everybody now describes as a toxic, up and down relationship. Friends, neighbors, and even law enforcement have said that there was so much DV in both directions. In early 2022, Courtney and Christian were living together in a luxury Miami high-rise. There's that now infamous elevator video from February of 2022, just weeks before the stabbing, where you can see Courtney lashing out at Christian, hitting and shoving him as he tries to shield himself and push her away. That video is important because it gives the public a visual of how volatile things were between them. But that's not the whole story of their relationship. Police had been called to the apartment more than one time. Building staff reportedly tried to have Courtney removed after repeated disturbances. Friends have said that they've seen bruises, they'd hear screaming, and they watched the two break up and get back together all the time. There is evidence that both of them accused the other of abuse at different times. All of that leads to April 3rd of 2022. On that day, Christian is stabbed once in the chest inside of their apartment. The knife goes straight into his heart. Courtney is the one who calls 911. On that call, she says Christian attacked her, that she acted in self-defense, and you can reportedly hear the chaos in the background as first responders rush and try to save him. Body cam footage from first responding officers show Courtney in bloody clothes, crying and talking about being attacked while Christian is dying on the floor. Christian does not survive. Courtney admits she stabbed him, but from the beginning, she claims it was self-defense during a violent fight. The state's position is that this is not self-defense. They say this was a culmination of a long, tumultuous relationship in which she was the primary aggressor and the final stab was an unlawful, intentional act that killed him. Why is she charged with second-degree murder and not first? In Florida, first-degree murder typically means the state is saying you had a pre-planned, deliberate intent to kill, or you killed someone while committing certain or other serious felonies. That's your classic premeditated murder or felony murder situation. Second-degree murder is different. It doesn't require the prosecution to prove that Courtney sat down and planned this out in advance. Instead, they only have to prove that she acted with what the law calls a depraved mind, without regard for human life. In plain English, out of legalese, the state is saying that this was intentional, extremely dangerous act that showed a reckless disregard for Christian's life, even if it wasn't pre-planned. The state is not saying she accidentally dropped the knife. They are saying she intentionally stabbed him in the chest, and that even if she didn't wake up that morning planning to kill him, it was still murder under Florida law. And on top of that, there's another layer that will matter at trial. How do you pick a jury for a case like this in Miami? You have a white, blonde, OnlyFans Instagram model who made a lot of money from her content. You also have a Black Nigerian American man who ends up dead. There's already a ton of media coverage and there's a ton of social media commentary and a whole bunch of people who have seen the elevator video, her mugshot, and the crime scene photos. Jurors are going to come in with feelings about sex work. Some will see her as a victim of DV who snapped. Others will see a privileged influencer who got away with too much for too long. Add in the racial dynamics and the fact that it is Miami, jury selection becomes its own battle. Both sides are going to be fighting over who can truly be fair to both Christian and Courtney in that jury box. Now I want you to zoom out of the procedural mess because this is where the delays in the December 5th hearing come in. Christian was killed on April 3rd, 2022. Courtney was not arrested that night. In the weeks after the stabbing, she left Miami and ended up in Hawaii at a rehab facility. Prosecutors didn't charge her until August of 2022, more than 4 months later, when she was arrested in Hawaii on a warrant for second-degree murder, then extradited back to Florida. That gap is one of the reasons Christian's family and many in the public were outraged. From their perspective, they saw a Black man stabbed to death in a luxury high-rise and a white influencer who was able to leave the state and keep living her life for months before she finally faced handcuffs. Once she was brought back to Miami, a judge denied her bond. She has been sitting in jail ever since, over 3 years now, with no trial. During that time, Christian's family has not just pushed for criminal accountability, they've also filed a civil lawsuit against her, arguing that her actions wrongfully caused his death and devastated their family. So while the criminal case crawls along, there's also a civil battle playing in the background. And it doesn't stop there. In 2024, Courtney's parents, both Mother Deb and Father Kim, were themselves arrested and charged in a separate case involving alleged evidence tampering and computer crimes. Prosecutors accused the three of them of accessing Christian's laptop and iCloud accounts after his death to get into his personal data. Months later, after a judge excluded key evidence and ruled that prosecutors had gone too far in how they obtained and used some of those materials, the state eventually dropped the charges against the parents. But the damage to trust between the defense and the prosecutor's office was already done. So if you look at the full timeline of the case, it goes something like this. April 22. Christian is killed. August 22. Courtney is arrested in Hawaii on second-degree murder and extradited to Miami. Late 22 into 23, there are bond hearings, the elevator video, and other evidence is released, and the case becomes a national story. Early 24, Courtney and her parents are arrested on the computer hacking case. I mean, she was already in custody, but at least her parents were arrested. In summer 24, a judge throws out key evidence in that hacking case, and charges against her parents are dismissed. Through 24 and into the year of 25, there are multiple evidentiary hearings, including fights over what evidence the jury should be allowed to hear and whether prosecutors violated attorney-client privilege. At one point, a trial date was set for December 1st of 2025, but as that date got closer, the judge had to bump it because there were too many unresolved motions on the table. That's how we end up with this final hearing on December 5th. So what are the big motions that are still on the table? First bucket is a motion to dismiss the case, or at least impose serious sanctions on the state. Courtney's lawyers say prosecutors crossed some major lines. They argue that the state accessed privileged materials, things like text messages and documents from Courtney's family's iCloud accounts, and a group that called Team Courtney. That text chain included her lawyers, her parents, and members of the defense team. According to the defense, that material laid out their entire defense strategy, and the prosecution should have never seen it. I saw it. I think I showed it to y'all. They also claim that certain pieces of evidence were mishandled or destroyed, and that the state failed to timely disclose a neighbor who could have been helpful to Courtney's self-defense claim. That neighbor has said he saw Christian acting violently toward Courtney in the days leading up to the stabbing. In a separate but related move, her attorneys have filed a motion to disqualify the entire Miami-Dade state attorney's office from the case. They're not just asking for a new prosecutor. They're saying the whole office should be removed and a new agency should be brought in because of these alleged ethical violations. The state, for its part, is pushing back. Prosecutors say they've taken corrective action where needed, including removing an individual prosecutor from the case, and they argue that disqualifying the entire office would be extreme and unnecessary. They say whatever issues existed can be corrected, and then the case should move forward to trial with them still at the helm. If you watch the court TV coverage on these hearings and you see both sides arguing hard, the defense painting this as a massive violation of attorney-client privilege and fairness, and the state saying we made mistakes, but we fixed them, and we're still entitled to prosecute this case. For those of you who aren't lawyers, let me quickly translate what's at stake. A motion to dismiss is the defense asking the judge to throw out the whole case entirely. No trial, no jury, charges gone. That's the nuclear option. A motion to disqualify the prosecutor's office is slightly different. That doesn't automatically free Courtney. It would mean the case gets handed off to a different prosecuting agency, like another state attorney's office or the attorney general. But everything could get delayed again while that new team gets up to speed. And there's a middle of the ground: sanctions. That can look like the judge excluding certain evidence, preventing the state from using materials they obtained improperly, or issuing formal findings of misconduct without killing the case. So, what is the December 5th hearing really? Think of December 5th as a deadline and a decision point. It's the day where the judge expects to hear final arguments on those big motions: the motion to dismiss, the motion for sanctions, the attempt to disqualify the Miami-Dade state attorney's office, and then either rule or at least tell everybody what's coming next. It's a big day in this case because December 8th is when the trial was going to start. But here's a few things that could happen. Option 1, the judge denies the motions. If that happens, the state keeps the case, the charges stay intact, and they work together to reset a new trial date, likely for early of 2026. There may still be some cleanup around evidence, but the case proceeds more or less as planned. Option 2, the judge finds serious violations but stops short of dismissal. In that world, you might see sanctions. Certain evidence gets thrown out. The state is barred from using anything that came from privileged communications. Maybe a stern written order criticizing how they handled things, but the murder case itself stays alive and goes to a jury. Option 3, the rarest. The judge actually disqualifies the entire prosecutor's office or dismisses the case outright. If she disqualifies them, another office has to take over, which could mean months of delay. If she dismisses the case, the state could try to appeal or potentially refile, but it would have to be a massive win for the defense in the short term. This is why December 5th matters so much. It's not about another status hearing. It's a hearing that could decide who prosecutes this case, what evidence the jury will hear, and how much longer Christian's family and Courtney herself will be stuck in this limbo. Beyond the legal chessboard, this case touches some big themes. There's DV in both directions. A lot of people are watching to see how the justice system handles a relationship where both partners were allegedly violent. There's an influencer with wealth and privilege. Would a regular woman in Miami have been treated the same way? Or did her fame protect her early on and then turn the public against her? There are obvious racial dynamics: a white OnlyFans model, a Black victim, a diverse Miami jury pool, and a family that feels it took too long to arrest her, only now to watch her sit for years awaiting trial. You can ask real questions both ways. Why did it take 4 months to arrest the person who admitted doing the stabbing? And on the flip side, why has it taken more than 3 years to bring her trial once she was locked up? That tension is part of why people are glued to this case. Whenever this finally gets to a jury, it's almost guaranteed to be televised and streamed. You've got social media, race, gender, self-defense, DV, and an influencer defendant. Every ingredient for a major live trial moment is there. And that's where I come in. I will be streaming this December 5th hearing gavel to gavel, breaking down the arguments from both sides in real time and explaining what each ruling means for Christian's family, for Courtney, and for the integrity of this case. So tell me in the comments below, based on what you've seen so far, is Courtney a cold-blooded killer, a DV victim who fought back, or something in between? Is she the victim or the villain in this story? Or can both people in a relationship be victims? And if you've got a true crime or legal case you want us to dig up next, make sure you fill out our case submission e-form. The link is in the description box below. Me and my team actually read those, and a lot of what we cover here on this channel starts with your suggestions. I'm AV. This is AV to the 7th power, and I'll see you live on December 5th. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. See you in the next one. Bye.